Hello everyone, my name is Anto, member of 5. Good to see you all. I'm delighted to be here today to present to you the article Learning Vocabulary Through Games. After this speech, you will be able to find out how effective learning vocabulary through games are. Next slide, please. Our group has 5 members, respectively Anh Thư, Hoài Thư, Ngọc Nguyên, Phương Uyên, and Như Quỳnh. Our presentation is divided into 5 parts, and I will undertake to present the first sections. I'm going to tell you about the abstract. Vietnamese students usually feel bored in vocabulary lesson because they have not changed their learning habits, such as writing words on paper, trying to learn by heart, or learning passively through the teacher explanations. Most academic reviews start from an assumption that games, but with other aspects of learning, are beneficial. However, we single out the component of games of study that in isolation. After reviewing academic opinion on this specifically focused matter, of which there are relatively few. Next slide, please. The purpose of the study is to help students find language classes, especially vocabulary lessons, more interesting and to achieve more from games. The author used the symbol here is the author all classes and observing other teacher classes. The research context is Vietnamese teacher and student. Next. The author began action research, which included applying games and interviewing both teachers and learners, so as to elicit student reactions, feelings, and the effectiveness of games in vocabulary learning. Next. The research showed they are effective in helping students to improve their vocabulary building skill. The significance of the study. In recent years, communicative language teaching COT has been applied in Vietnam, and from the author's own experience, it has shown its effectiveness in teaching and learning language. COT is an approach that helps students be more active in real-life situations through the means of individual, pair, and group work activities. It encourages students to practice in the language they learned in meaningful ways. Next, please. Next, please. Keep going, keep going. Okay. In a COT classroom, playing vocabulary game is one of the activities which require students to actively communicate with their classmates using their own language. Next, please. We have seen the abstract. Now let's go through the introduction sections. In learning a foreign language, vocabulary plays an important role. It is one element that links 4 skills of speaking, listening, reading, and writing all together. In order to communicate well in a foreign language, students should acquire an accredited number of words and should know how to use them accurately. Next, please. The statement of the problem. Even though students realize the importance of vocabulary when learning language, most Vietnamese students learn vocabulary passively due to several factors. First, they consider the teacher explanation for meaning or definition, pronunciation, spelling, and grammatical functions boring. In this case scenario, language learners have nothing to do in a vocabulary learning sections, but to listen to their teacher. Second, Students only think of vocabulary learning as knowing the primary meaning of the new words. Therefore, they ignore all other functions of the words. Third, students usually only acquire new vocabulary through new words in the textbook or when given by a teacher during classroom lessons. For example, learners find many new words in the text and then ask the teacher to explain the meaning and usage. Students mainly focus on theory rather than practice. The learning method is still quite passive and not highly applicable. Fourth, many Vietnamese learners do not want to take risks in applying what they learned. Students may recognize a word in a written or spoken form and think that they already know the word, but they may not be able to use that word properly in different contexts or pronounce it correctly based on traditional learning methods, which are fairly passive. Vietnamese students do not have the habits of applying new words they have learned to real circumstances. Also, learners suffer from answer of making mistakes when they have to use vocabulary. The research questions. The questions the author began to examine is, do games help students learn vocabulary effectively? And if so, how? That is the end of my presentations. Now Hoài Thu will continue our presentation in the next part. Thank you for listening.
Hello, everybody. Moving on to literature review. Nowadays, activities such as vocabulary games are now the solutions for those who have difficulty with unfamiliar words during their time studying a new language. This game have the learner remember how to use words in any situations. Investigating if and how kids learn language through game is theoretical crucial. Next. Vocabulary is taught through speaking, listening, reading, and writing lessons, and students use the words which are provided by the teacher to do homework tasks. Sometimes people look for the meanings in the dictionary and they write down these words even though they do not know how to use it in context. According to Eric Decario works shouldn't be learned independently or through memory without comprehension. A further point is that learning new words is cumulative process with term richer and established when they are met again. According to nations, the see and recall method of learning vocabulary has appeared to be not very effective for learning language students. Next. Additionally, some specialists has identified gaming quality that improving vocabulary development. Game in the classroom provide a welcome receive from the typical routine form of the language lessons, motivating and challenging effort of learning and language practice in the many ability according to Lee. In conclusion, games are effective teaching methods that often used in vocabulary trainings. The use of vocabulary is a technique in increasing the interest, fun, and effectiveness of the lesson. Moving on to method, we have Nguyen to present.
Hi, I'm Wing and continues my parse methods. We find out the student experience through learning from games, and we focus on student reception and models as well as what students gain through learning with vocabulary games, playing game and interviews some teachers and students. apply as many games as possible in his classes at these distant education centers. DEC to learn from learner feedback whether they have a suitable game and how it can help improve learning their existing vocabulary or not. So I introduce my friend Wing to continue our presentation.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Phương. Today I'm going to talk about result. After collecting data by observing CLT teacher classes, interviewing teachers and students, and from our impression of applying them in the classes we are teaching, we have come to some findings that will be helpful for teaching and learning vocabulary. Three succession. Firstly, student expectation and attitudes. Secondly, student progress. And finally, unanticipated problems. So let's move on. Student expression and attitude. When being at about the way of learning English vocabulary, most students in our classes at the teaching education center said they just copied new words provided by teacher or look up words in the dictionary. And many of them marked or underline words they did not know in their textbooks and noticed the meaning in Vietnamese. Mm, yeah, and so some students not the time they had to copy line and line of new words in their notebook which were forgotten soon. So students ask many questions of getting learning vocabulary line. Teacher, how can I remember word and their meaning quickly and for a long time? Or how can I use word properly in different contexts? And can you tell me an easy and simple way to retain the vocabulary that I have learned? LTC Quad Teaching Journal Math 2003. So, and students particularly enjoy the game Hangman. It means guessing words that belong to the topic of research or an animal's word purple polus and the advertisement water conversion making an uh, advertisement for travel tour. Nevertheless, 7 among 20 students expressed their uh, satisfaction after the game, and many of them wanted to play more as they said the game were fun and they found them helpful for their learnings. Mm, and moreover, we observe for lessons was applied again in providing and retaining student vocabulary by through CLT teacher at SUFS. Mm, in into different classes, we we watches the gameplay activity called selling and buying things, in which 10 students were shopkeepers selling foods and food to the rest of the class. Thus, Through this kind of activity, students may be able to remember their vocabulary better. Or this time the teachers use the game called snakes and ladders. Students work in group of five, and everyone went from the start and tried to read the finish as soon as possible by answering correctly to questions which were prepared by the teacher. After overseeing the game, we gave a more survey to 20 students with some questions about their feeling total the gameplay. And from this survey, we learned that on 20 students agreed that game helped them a lot in vocabulary learning. So that's all. Thank you for listening. Let's move on. I invite Quỳnh to continue my presentation. Quỳnh, please.
Hello everyone. I'm Quinn, and now I will continue our presentation. My part is about students' progress. So, although that the game in learning vocabulary are short activities, but they create a relaxed and pleasant learning atmosphere in the classroom. This method helps learners, especially young learners, creating motivation and excitement in the class. So to apply game effectively, teachers should spend the first part of their lesson for warm-up activity in order to check the students' understanding or to check what they remember about the previous lesson. For example, teacher can use the Simon Says game or the Hangman game. Next slide, please. So regarding the effectiveness of the game, interviewed teachers report that their students seem to learn new vocabulary more quickly and retain it better when it applied in a relaxed and comfortable environment, such as while playing games. When asked how they felt about after a game, they said that they could remember a few words more quickly and for a very long time when they learned them through games. So let's move on to our next one for the third part of the result. Nguyen.
and, and anticipate problems. Journal reflections from our own experience, observation of other teachers' classes, and interview review that sometimes game creates problems for both students and teachers. Game cannot be successful if the teacher does not explain the tasks and roles of students clearly in playing games. An American teacher's working at SUFS told us that sometimes she failed to make her students understand the game rules. Fortunately, some of her students were able to find out what they had to do in this game and re-explain to their classmates. And can requires all student involvement and they promote friendly competitions. Therefore, it is very important that students have a cooperative attitude. Conduct the game Marvelous Cowhead, the Vietnamese television version of the American Wheel of Fortunes, in a class at the Distance Education Center were not successful. Members of the groups do not cooperate with, with each other. And another issue is while playing games, students usually speak in their mother tongues to discuss instead of the language they are learning. From our own experience and as you as teachers comment, it is hard to control this use of first language in classrooms. And one unavoidable thing in utilizing games in English classrooms is the student, especially those who speak the same language, prefer using the first language to English, even advanced students. As my friend continues conclusions.
Hello friend, it's Quinn again, and now we'll come to the conclusion. So in conclusion, to save vocabulary from being a boring subject, teacher can slide in some games activities in their class. Games contribute to vocabulary learning because they give students a chance to learn, practice, and to review the learning language in a pleasant atmosphere. From the research, we found that students are demanding a new way of teaching vocabulary, and they themselves are in a search of new way of learning this subject as well. But under circumstances, games have been shown to have advantages and effectiveness in learning vocabulary in various ways. First, games bring in relaxation and fun for students, thus help them learn and retain new words more easily. Second, games usually involve friendly competition, and they keep learners' interest and create motivation for learners to keep learning. And third, vocabulary games bring real-world context in the classroom and enhance students' use of English in a flexible, communicative way. The result of this research suggests that games are used not only for mere fun, but but more importantly, for the useful practice and review of language lessons, thus leading towards a goal of improving learners' communicative competence. Thank you for listening.